People here at our rainforest building, coming to hear a great speaker speak about how we elevate New Mexico. I'm Ryan Cangelosi. I'm the Director of Economic and Community Development at the Health Sciences Center, and I'm also a part of the Hispano Chamber. I'm on the board, I'm the treasurer, and I'm also the head of our Economic Development Committee, and this kind of was born out of that committee. And I'll share just a few minutes of why we're doing this and what we're hoping to do in the future here at the Rainforest and for New Mexico. So out of that, we started meeting, and there's so many great small businesses and medium-sized businesses here in New Mexico and throughout the Albuquerque area. And a lot of them are members of the Hispano Chamber. And so we were coming together, this group of business leaders, thinking about how do we grow economic development in this amazing city. And we all know we're all living here because the city is an amazing city. Do you guys agree? This is a great city. But probably you hear a lot, the city has potential, right? We hear it all the time. It has potential. It has potential. Well, we're hoping with this collaboration, people coming together, hearing speakers like Ambassador Whitman, that we take that potential and turn it into progress. And so there are 5 entities that are involved in bringing this together, and I just want to recognize them. UNM Health Sciences. We have UNM Anderson School of Management. Rob Del Campo couldn't make it today, but he is a part of this collaboration. Dekker, who you'll see here in a little bit, Del Dekker. The Albuquerque Hispano Chambers of Commerce, and the New Mexico Bioscience Authority. If you want to learn more about the Bioscience Authority, we have stuff on the table over there. And so we came together thinking, how do we elevate our thinking here in New Mexico about the potential that New Mexico has? And we have great people living in Albuquerque that have come from different backgrounds, from different areas. One is my good friend Nella Domenici, who moved here. She has a house. She's had a house here in New Mexico for 20 years, 20 plus years from here. But she did all of her work, her business work in New York, and she's now back in New Mexico wanting to give back to her home state. People like her, now Ambassador Whitman, and so many others. We have a great guy here that moved to Albuquerque, Jim Ward, who was George Lucas's right-hand man. And he said, I decided to move to Albuquerque. This is where I'm retiring. And he's doing a lot of work in venture capital. And he's going to be a part of this series of different high-level speakers. How do we elevate our thinking in New Mexico to take our city to another place? You guys ready for that? All right. And so it's my honor to introduce our CEO and president of the Hispano Chamber. Where are you at, Ernie? There you are. Come on up, Ernie.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for telling me to wear a blue suit and blue shirt. I think it works out pretty well. Welcome, everybody, and I'm really honored to be here exactly for what Ryan said as part of him being on the Committee on Economic Development and how we need to grow and work together in this community. I know we all love this community. We all are here. So I'm excited and honored to be able to introduce the speakers today. So Meg Whitman was confirmed in a unanimous vote by the U.S. Senate. Imagine that. Wow. As the 18th United States Ambassador to Kenya on July 14th, 2022. In Kenya, she focused on accelerating economic growth and development, forged new conservation initiatives, supported good governance and democratic principles, and oversaw significant humanitarian assistance. She returned home in December 2024 with a change in the administration. Ambassador Whitman has significant experience leading business organizations from startups to large multinational companies. In Silicon Valley, she has served as the president and CEO of Hewlett-Packard, small company, and the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and the Hewlett-Packard Company, both multinational informational technology companies. She also served as president and CEO of eBay, Inc., an online marketplace and digital payments company. She's also a member of numerous corporate boards of directors, including those of Procter & Gamble, General Motors, Dropbox, and recently joined the board of CoreWeave, Inc. Committed to equality in education and protection of the environment, Ambassador Whitman has been National Board Chair of Teach for America and a member of the Board of Trustees of the Nature Conservancy. Ambassador Whitman is married to Dr. Griffith Harsh, a neurosurgeon. They have 2 grown sons and 3 grandchildren. Whitman holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and AB in economics from Princeton University, class of 1977. I'm older than you. Come on up, please. Thank you. You look way better than me too, dang it. See, anybody know this guy? Dale Dekker? I don't know. I've known Dale for a long time, Dale. So, founding principal of Dekker, formerly Dekker Parrish Sabatini, a design and architectural firm with offices in Albuquerque, Phoenix, and El Paso. DPS traces its roots to 1959 when Dale's father, Art Dekker, started an architectural and engineering sole proprietorship firm in Albuquerque. The firm of Dekker is comprised of over 210 professionals and support personnel providing architecture, landscape architecture planning, interior design, and structural engineering services to clients in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and throughout the country. Dale grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, graduated from Zia University, graduated with a Bachelor of Architecture, graduated from Zia Elementary. I was going university, orale. Jefferson Junior High and Highland High School. There we go. He attended Texas Tech University, graduated with a Bachelor of Architecture degree in '75, and is, you're older than me, and has been a licensed architect in New Mexico for over 45 years. Dale is dedicated to helping build dynamic and sustainable communities. He has served in numerous community boards and is most interested in initiatives and boards that want to grow New Mexico's economy. He has been involved in startup companies like RS21 and Electric Playhouse. A major undertaking has been his involvement in the development of Max Q, a 70-acre mixed-use R&D development located north of the Air Force Research Lab at Kirtland Air Force Base that focuses on attracting space and direct energy companies to New Mexico. In addition, he, along with others, have accelerated initiatives such as Grow Bio, New Space Nexus, and is now helping organize the New Mexico Circular Economy Working Group with Advanced Manufacturing Working Group. Dale believes strongly that New Mexico could grow and thrive in the future, and he dedicates much of his volunteer efforts to promoting economic development initiatives that benefit all New Mexicans. But more importantly, he married my childhood next door neighbor, Diane Schaefer. That is your claim to fame. So welcome, Dale. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Ernie. And I don't know if I need this, do I? The sound man? Okay. So great. Well, welcome everybody. This is a family meeting of New Mexicans. I don't need this?
Because you've got a mic.
Well, that's what I thought too, but since they handed it to me and said, use this, I thought, well, I'll do that. So this is a family meeting, and I know I'm not the first one, but I'd like to welcome you to our family meeting here.
Thank you.
Because we all care about New Mexico. We all want it to thrive and grow. We want it to achieve great things. And I look around the room and I know many of you, and we've had many passionate conversations about our state's potential and about the opportunities in this new world that we're in today. Think about what's happened in the last 5 years around technology, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, bio and life science. And so it's really my honor to be able to be up here today talking with Meg Whitman, who has done so much at a global level as an ambassador, but also as a woman leader in business and the companies that you've run. So this is a conversation. We'll have it for about 45 minutes, and then we'll do some Q&A. But I'm going to lead it off, and I told her I wasn't going to throw her too many hardballs because, like she told me, she said, I can answer any question that you throw at me because...
I ran for public office.
There you go. So the first question I'd like to ask you, Meg, is, as you think about leadership in uncertain times. What qualities do you believe are most essential for business and civic leaders navigating today's economy?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for being the interviewer, and thanks to the team here for having me. So we do live in, I think, very uncertain times and tumultuous times, at least certainly the most tumultuous in my adult life. And so I think right now leaders need to have a couple of special characteristics. One is high degrees of integrity and transparency and the ability to communicate. Communication's gotten a lot more complicated in the last 10 or 15 years. It used to be we had networks and newspapers. Now social media has changed everything about communication. So I think that's super important. I think the other thing is clarity of purpose and clarity of strategic thinking. What are you all trying to accomplish in this very uncertain time? And then last but not least is the right people in the right job at the right time with the right attitude on your team. I am a big believer of the power of teams. What we can do together, none of us can do alone. And now more than ever, having the right people with different perspectives on the team, I think is critical. And then last but not least, I really feel like leaders need to be uniters, not dividers.
Well, yeah. So when you look at national trends, particularly in technology, AI, energy production, quantum advanced manufacturing, reshoring, onshoring, and nearshoring of manufacturing, where can New Mexico insert itself and really shine, not only on a national, regional basis, but on a global platform?
Yeah. So I would echo, someone said, that New Mexico has a lot of potential. I think you've all said that for many years. By the way, I'm from out of town. I just arrived in January. And so things I say are from the benefit of being here for just 6 to 9 months. But I do think New Mexico has tremendous potential. And I would argue a few things. First of all, you have tremendous strengths here. It is a beautiful state, lower cost of living, the highest number of PhDs per capita of any state in the country. The benefits of Los Alamos, Sandia National Labs, and Kirtland Air Force Base are not to be underestimated. More can be done, I think, in the tech transfer area, but those are real strengths. And you have sovereign wealth fund. You all know you have the second largest sovereign wealth fund in the United States of America. Soon will, I think in the next 5 or 6 years, will surpass Alaska's. And so thinking about that is a huge opportunity. And then anchor industries. Okay, so some things are working, right? Oil and natural gas, funds 1/3 of the budget here. And so I think those are real strengths to build on. I think there's some challenges, and I'm going to come to answer your question in a moment, but the challenges I think will inform what the recommendations are. You've got a very concentrated GDP, probably more than most states, meaning government is 25% of the economy, mining and oil and natural gas is 10%, professional businesses and services is a minor piece, and then real estate, and everything else is quite small. So you're really concentrated GDP. And so I think there's a couple of things that are real opportunities now. Okay, I'm always believing, could we do more of what we do well? And let's start there. So energy is an obvious thing. And whether it's quantum or fusion, quantum computing, whether it's fusion, what is the energy that you can use for this next generation of compute? Quantum is going to use a lot of energy, but as you know, artificial intelligence is going to suck energy like we have never seen before. I happen to sit on the board of CoreWeave, which is one of the largest providers of AI data centers. And the electricity, we are going to run out of electricity on the grid. And I think New Mexico can stake out, we want to be the energy leader. Now, you've got a bit of an issue around water, because water is what cools these data centers, but I think that can be solved. The next thing that I would say is the opportunity for economic development in tech. You already have Intel here. Intel is a challenged company right now, but tech of all kinds. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, cutting edge tech. It can be all kinds of things that are tech focused. Now, I'm a big believer in tech. I grew up in tech. Tech can employ a lot of people, but you cannot forget the people who are high school educated who are not techies. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in things like tourism. Tourism should be twice the size here that it is. This is an incredibly beautiful state, but tourism should be twice the size. But tourism won't be twice the size unless you solve the affordable housing problem. And affordable housing, I'm sure all of, or most of you have read Abundance. If you could figure out how to do affordable housing here, you could be a leader in the country on what to do and how to solve that problem. The other thing is, and this will be no surprise, is healthcare, right? You have the opportunity, I think, Mike and I were talking earlier, UNM and UNM Health Sciences has incredible potential to be ginormous here and to be a real engine of economic growth. And I often like to tell the story of Alabama. In Birmingham, Alabama, Birmingham was a steel town, you might remember. Then steel closed down. And they had sort of a long walk through the desert. And then the University of Alabama, Birmingham became really the second most important medical center in the Southeast, next to in Atlanta. And what was amazing about it, and I think you all could do this, they basically said, we're going to own 2 or 3 disciplines in health sciences. They started with cardiology, as you might remember, and they basically hired the best cardiac surgeons and the best cardiologists in the country, paid whatever it took to get them to Birmingham, Alabama, and then built from there. And I think a big opportunity now is with NIH funding being cut everywhere, particularly to the elite Northeastern universities. There's a lot of researchers, a lot of healthcare professionals who are losing their research funding, and they will go to where that research funding is. And I think, again, trying to figure out 2 or 3 things that you all could own here and then go get them. They will come. They, in New Mexico, might not have been on their radar, but I'm telling you, academic researchers, if they lose 2 years of momentum and 2 years of funding, you know this, Mike, it's a disaster. And so you have an opportunity, I think, to use some of that sovereign wealth fund money to bring incredible new disciplines that you all want to own here. And then I think UNM is a powerhouse for economic growth and development. I have 2 models for that. One is, you all know Mike Crow at ASU. Okay, he's like practically the governor of the state. It's kind of amazing what he's done. And so I think that's really quite remarkable. And so thinking about what has ASU done that partly that you, and I know that you've been to visit Mike Crow, but don't let that go. He's doing something very special. And then the other person who I think is really remarkable is Daniel Diermeyer at Vanderbilt. He has taken that organization, that university, from kind of not also ran, but okay, to great. I mean, they're just in the last couple of years, their admittance rate is 5.3% of the kids who apply. It's like Harvard or something. I mean, it's quite remarkable. So those are the few of the things. I think modernizing agriculture. Agriculture is an important part of New Mexico. I think there could be more done with the modernization of agriculture. So those are some of my ideas. But I have to say, one of the things I'm very focused on, or was in my career, is focus. Could we please focus on a small number of things and drive them home as opposed to literally solve world hunger? This was very relevant in Kenya because they are actually trying to solve world hunger. But focusing on a small number of things and nailing them and then moving on would be another thing that I think is important as New Mexicans think about what direction you all want to go.
Yeah, you mentioned several things there that I think resonate with all of us. The need to diversify our economy. Our state has adopted a plan that's identified 9 kind of verticals relative to economic development. And I think as New Mexicans, we've always taken for granted our sovereign wealth fund. I think we've seen it always as it's been sold to us as New Mexicans as a rainy day fund. Mm. And I think if you really look at some of the data surrounding our state, it's raining outside. So realizing as CEO and the board of directors that you've had to work with, and your role as CEO to move your board in a direction of making strategic investments, of future casting, of looking to the future, where things are going to be, investing in those things now with the hope that it will pay off dividends in the future. What has been your strategy as a CEO relative to that? Because our board of directors, Bruce King said it very well to a group one time when he said, I'm the CEO and my board of directors is the legislature. So how do we as a state inform our legislature to make some of those strategic investments that we just talked about?
Well, again, I'm from out of town, but my opinion on this is if New Mexico is going to fulfill its full potential as a southwestern powerhouse, which is what I think you can be, you're going to have a full-time legislator that's paid well, and you get really good people to come and be a full-time legislator, because the amount of work that needs to be done is actually 12 months worth of work, not 60 days, not 30 days. And I think as long as that is a part-time, non-paid legislature, I think you're going to have one hand tied behind your back. But let's assume for a moment that that could change and you had the right people with different points of view and different agendas. Then how do you actually get a common, relatively shared point of view on what's good for New Mexico? And I used to say, and this sounds a little jaded, but it's not, I used to say, you have to focus on the illusion of inclusion. Like, you just have to make people feel like they were included. You may have a point of view about what you want to get done, but you've got to make sure that everyone feels like they had input. And input is really important. You know, people, at least sometimes if you decide to go another way, at least they feel like you heard them. And so I don't mean to be jaded about it, but sometimes it is a little bit about the illusion of inclusion without losing your true north and what you think is the right thing to do, or your leadership team or your organization. So I think, I don't know exactly what to do with a part-time legislature that isn't paid. I mean, the other problem here is, if I can say this, is they are paid. They're just paid in a different way. And there is a sort of a corruption aspect here. That might be too strong a word. In Kenya, I was taught to say it's a governance issue. Mm-hmm. There's a governance issue here, because the special interests are actually paying for their campaigns. And who knows what else is actually going on here. And so that's the other reason why I think you've got to have a full-time legislature that is paid well, so that is their job, and they are doing this for New Mexico, not for their individual interests.
Great, those are valuable insights. And again, I think the business community and our civic leaders are beginning to realize that this isn't a part-time state.
No.
Leadership is not part-time.
Well, it can be a part-time state if you're happy with the status quo. If
Right.
you want to do something else and really say, you know, we're going to change this state dramatically in the next 10 to 15 years, then it's not a part-time. It's not a half-time job. It's a full-time job that will take, you know, the power of many to get it done.
I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into something you said about going from good to great. And I think we would all agree that there's some really good programs at UNM that are in the national top 10 in certain areas of engineering or bio or life science or things. But in today's environment, that NIH analogy that you made is, and the fact that we've got the Sovereign Wealth Fund, an anchor institution like the University of New Mexico could take us in many number of areas of engineering, life science, bio, business, international business, and law to the next level and go good to great. What do you think that would do for our state if we were to use those anchor institutions effectively to move our state?
I think it's essential. I don't know that you can do it without an anchor institution like University of New Mexico. And the other thing that you're, I think, really, I mean, to be clear about what it is that the state's trying to do, I think in the end, this has to be about economic development, growth, and jobs, right? You want to be a growth state. Right now, it's a pretty flat population growth. Ultimately, you want to be growing this GDP at probably somewhere between 6 to 8%. You want to be creating jobs, not only jobs at the high end of technology and scientists, but as I said before, for the high school educated folks who are not necessarily technically oriented. And so I think that the University of New Mexico, and frankly, I mean, in some ways you have an opportunity here. You're going to have a new governor in the fall of next year, and you're going to have a new head of the university. And by the way, 1 + 1, if those two work together really tightly, 1 + 1 could equal like 6, because those are two gigantic anchor institutions that can make things happen. The government is a big anchor institution, and so is the University of New Mexico. And so if you think of, okay, what we want to do here is jobs. I mean, I'm big in metrics. Could we please like have a small number of metrics? I think jobs would be one. And so how do you do that? And I think that one of the things that can be done here, and can be done, by the way, I'm on the board of what's called Partnership San Francisco, which is like Bloomberg's Partnership for New York, which is how do you bring back San Francisco, that has taken a really 5-year walk through the desert with, COVID. basically, what are the rules, regulations, tax regimes that can make this state the best state to start a new business, to bring business to? How do you make yourself the most competitive state for job creation in the Southwest? And that has got to be a combination of the governor's office and the tax regime and regulations, as well as University of New Mexico, who can weigh in on this, and then frankly the mayors of the big cities, because the mayors know what is keeping jobs from being grown here. And whether that is, in San Francisco, it's a tax regime that makes no sense. And they're going to fix that. What they do in San Francisco is they have a gross receipts tax. So do you have a gross receipts tax? Okay, news flash, that's actually a problem. Because, OpenAI, San Francisco cannot lose OpenAI. The whole reason San Francisco is on an upswing is we have a new mayor who's fantastic, but also better to be lucky than smart, AI. Do you know that 462 AI companies have been founded in the last 18 months in San Francisco? $70 billion of venture capital into the city of San Francisco, not Oakland, not Marin, not South Bay, the city of San Francisco. And so OpenAI is 13 billion of revenue. They make no money. In fact, they lose money. But the gross receipts tax means they get taxed on $13 billion of revenue. You can go to Brisbane, which is about 20 minutes south of the city of San Francisco, and not pay gross receipts tax. I mean, you don't need to be, my husband's a brain surgeon here at UNM, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to know that you've got to have a tax regime that furthers your economic growth and development objectives. So there's lots of things, whether it's the cost of building, whether it's how you get land for housing, there's a whole host of things that are truly the provenance of the government to partner with organizations like UNM and the private sector here to make this the best possible place to invest.
Speaking of making New Mexico the best possible place to invest, what have you seen in your experience where the public sector could really kind of ignite growth through proper policy, through proper regulations, through tax restructuring? I mean, if you look at our state and any number of metrics, we're kind of the hole in the donut, right? Our states around us have lower corporate income tax rates. The states surrounding us have lower poverty rates. The states surrounding us have higher per capita incomes. How do we ignite our economy and move it in a direction where everybody benefits, number one, because it has to move everybody, a rising tide lifts all boats. But in your experience, as both a CEO and as an ambassador in a developing country, what can we do collectively to help move the needle in New Mexico?
Yeah. Well, I think it is a bit of what I said, which is it is the job of government, both state, federal, and local, not so much federal here, but state and local, to what are the policies that need to be in place that encourage job creation. We've talked about taxes, but there's also things like uncapped malpractice insurance. Okay, you all are losing doctors like crazy because they get to a certain point and they're like, I'm off to Arizona. And so I know that that's under consideration by the legislature. I think that's a really important thing. I think, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that, and I'm sure there's maybe some attorneys in the audience, I'm not sure being the capital of personal injury lawsuits is actually what you want to be. You drive through town, every single billboard is personal injury. Like, we won $500 million here. If you're a CEO, you're looking at those billboards going, ooh, I don't know about that, you know? And so I think a diversification of what you stand for and what you communicate is going to be important. But I think it's very much and it doesn't have to be every change in regulation or every law or every tax regime. It's the 80-20. What is 20% of what you can do that will get you 80% of the way home? In San Francisco, it's three things. It is getting rid of the gross receipts tax, which they've lost McKesson, they've lost Bank of America, they've lost, all these companies. Gross receipts tax will help enormously. And then the second is building costs in San Francisco are 20% higher than they are on the peninsula. Why is that? Well, it's because there's been tons and tons of little incremental things that have been put on to the building of buildings that make them unaffordable. Okay, so how do you go back to basics and say, what do we actually need? Do we have to legislate bike rooms? Okay, if you're building a new building for residents in San Francisco, you have to have a bike room that will hold 2 bikes for every single resident of the apartment building, which adds about $250,000 to the cost of an apartment building with 100 units. And it's not that that was a bad idea in and of itself, it's just one of 100 that have been piled on and piled on and piled on. So those are the kinds of things that I think need to be looked at. And obviously, you know, the business people in this town could tell you what the 80-20 is in about 3 seconds, I'm sure.
Yes, and we'll get to that in just a minute, I hope. So in New Mexico, we have a saying, New Mexicans speak with one voices. How, in your role as a leader of large systems, large employee base, how are you able to energize your workforce, your employees, to speak with one voice relative to moving a company culture forward, changing a mindset, implementing a difficult policy that could mean that you had to think outside the box and not do business as usual,
Yeah.
which is also another thing about New Mexico, is we're really good about doing business as usual
Yeah.
sometimes. So as a leader...
I've heard the expression, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We want to be great.
So I would say a couple things. First of all, I think it depends on the size of your organization. Can I tell you, running eBay when it was 30 people and $4 million of revenue was a lot easier than it was when it was 15 billion in revenue, 8,000 people. So you know, small is easier. The bigger you get, the more bureaucratic it gets. And so the question is, how do you rally a big organization behind a change or behind something that needs to be done? I mean, I don't know that I have all the answers to this. What I will tell you, and Nello will appreciate this, I learned how to communicate to large groups of people when I ran for governor of California. And what I didn't understand, as a CEO, we're trained in facts and figures, left brain. And actually, when you're trying to move an organization, it is not about the facts. And I knew more about the budget of the state of California than Jerry Brown ever knew. Mm-hmm. No one cared. And it is about the stories that you tell and how do you illustrate what you want to become. And I learned storytelling late in the game. I might have won if I'd learned that a little bit earlier. I doubt it. But anyway, running as a Republican in a Democrat state might not have been the smartest thing that I ever did. But anyway, and so this idea of how do you paint a vision of what this organization can be that people can buy into. And again, you'll never get everybody, but you'll get most of the people. And especially if you get, as I said, that input, that ability to contribute to what that vision can be. And then my view is simple vision is better than complicated. One of my really, I think one of the most remarkable stories is Microsoft. When I was at HP in 2011, we wrote off Microsoft for dead. They'd missed the smartphone, they'd missed the tablets, they'd missed every major trend going on. And I remember when Satya Nadella was asked to be the CEO, he'd been a longtime Microsoftie. And we're all like, well, that was a dumb idea. Geez, I can't believe he took that job. And look what happened. Microsoft is remarkable. But you know what their strategy was? And every single person at Microsoft can say it. Cloud first, mobile first. And so when he conducted reviews of the Office group or the gaming group, he wanted to know, what are you doing to be mobile first and cloud first? That's all I want to know. And that rallied an entire organization. I mean, you saw it happen. It's kind of amazing. Now it's actually AI first, right? And so he's moved with the technology environment. He's moved, but you know the businesses are littered with long, wordy visions. And if you can say it in cloud first, mobile first, love you. That's what we're doing. And so I think that communication, that simplicity of communication, and everyone can figure out what they're supposed to do in that context. I think that makes a big difference. It's easier in a private company than it is in a government organization because, you know, in the end, the CEO decides, which is not always the case in a place like UNM or the government. But I think clarity of focus, simplicity, and involving people and then driving towards it. And people always say, well, incentives drive behavior. I think that's sort of true, but we spend a lot of time on, I'm on the comp committee now of CoreWeave. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to incentivize these guys. Okay, nothing we do is going to change what they do. They want to do it. I mean, by having a little bit more and, long-term incentive is not going to change what they do. You've got a group of people who are fired up and all over it. And so I don't think that compensation is the only thing at all that motivates people. It's helpful. Maybe it's a necessary but not sufficient condition, but it's not the only thing.
So one thing I think that's a challenge for our state, and I'd really love your opinion on how the business community and the people in this room can help overcome this, is that we have kind of short-termism in our thinking. So we'll come up with a great plan. Let's say we come up with a great economic development strategy. Everybody's gung-ho. We're pushing in that direction. Then we elect a new governor. They throw that out and say, "Oh, we need my plan.
Yeah.
We need my strategy," and it not only sets us back, but I think it really kind of hurts any momentum that you're building.
Yeah.
In a company, and being a CEO and a leader in a company, you set future, you set vision, you set direction. And how do you kind of instill the mindset that this is a journey? It's not just from here to there. It's a long-term process.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. So what would you recommend there?
So I think it is a combination, even in private business, it's a combination of short-term goals and long-term goals. Because in today's world, you're not going to be the CEO very long if you miss four quarters of earnings. Mm-hmm. You're just not. And so there's some short-termism that you just have to deliver. And I think that's true in almost any organization. You've just got to deliver some things in the near term. At the same time, laying the groundwork, laying the pipe for things that can be very important in the future. I used to say I wanted to plant acorns before we needed oak trees. That you've got to plant some acorns. Now you have to do that thoughtfully. You have to do that economically, and you can't break the bank. I mean, part of Intel's challenge, I think, was Pat Gelsinger, who's a good friend of mine. He basically, said we are going to be a chip designer and a chip manufacturer, and we're going to go after that in ways that we've never gone after before. So they built these enormous facilities. It was if we build it, they will come. That's usually not the right strategy. And, he lost his job because of it. So the long-term plans have to be achievable, attainable, and there also in the organization has to be some room for mistakes. Mm-hmm. But you won't get away with big mistakes like he did. You just won't. Yep. So I don't know if that's a very good answer to your question. But, if you have a governor for 8 years is a long time to get things done. I mean, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it is what it is. So if you're the governor, you better figure out what you're going to do in 8 years mm-hmm. and then get it done. Listen, some things will take much longer than that, but most things you can make big progress in 8 years, it seems to me.
So I've got two final questions, and we'll go to Q&A with the audience. So be thinking about your questions out there. I thought this was a pretty good question on my part that I developed. So okay. John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage.
Yep.
And if you were to write a book called Profiles in Leadership, what leaders have you known that you would include in your book, and why?
That's such a good question. So leaders I think our best leaders have unique strengths, but everyone is a flawed individual to some extent, right? So I was thinking about this, and anyone that you think of, there's always something that you wish they had done differently. But I was thinking about this. He gave me this question ahead of time, so thank you very much.
I didn't want you to come up with 50. So.
Yeah. So the first one I came up with was Abraham Lincoln. And I think the lessons of Abraham Lincoln in our current political environment are really important. I mean, he faced something even more challenging than we're facing right now, which is a civil war. And what he was able to do to bring this together, bring the country together, was quite remarkable. Now, anyone who's a student of history know that Reconstruction kind of got off the rails on many issues, and it wasn't a perfect post-Union victory. But I do admire him for the leadership that he exhibited. And I think the other characteristic of leadership is you got to be bold and you got to be courageous, and you can't be worried about failing. You're concerned about failing, but it cannot drive you. So that was the first one. The second one, again, a flawed individual in some ways, but you've got to give this guy credit, is Steve Jobs. I mean, Steve Jobs might be the most innovative tech leader of my generation. I mean, this guy changed everything, everything. I mean, no matter where you go in the world, everyone's on a cell phone. It is the computer in your pocket. And it is quite remarkable what he did. Now, he was very difficult to work with. He had some challenging family situations, so he's not perfect, but you got to give him credit. And he had a vision, and he built the right team around him. He was not a technologist. So he got Steve Wozniak, and he actually wasn't a designer. He had design sense, but Johnny Ive. So that team was, I think, remarkable. I think the next one, having been in Africa for 3 years, was Nelson Mandela. He changed everything. Now, after he died, South Africa's gone like this. I mean, South Africa is actually truly a mess right now. The leadership is corrupt. They're in the pocket of the Russians. I mean, the whole thing is really a mess at the moment. But for 18 years, or however long he was in office, he changed a situation. He changed apartheid in a way that no one thought could be done. So those were sort of the three that I came up with.
And then one final question. This is very pertinent to New Mexicans. What's next for Meg Whitman?
So I don't know. I've been through a little bit of a journey. So I came home in the end of December. And this is the first time in my adult life since I was 21 years old that I haven't had a full-time job. I have to say, it's been hard. It's been really hard because when you have a full-time job, you go to work. There's a team. You get things done. And when you have a portfolio of activities, you sort of feel like you're not really getting anything done. So it's been a good joy of discovery for me on how to think about that. And so I really have a portfolio of activities that I'm doing right now, 2 conservation projects in Kenya, plus the National Museum in Kenya. And plus, I went to school on AI. So when I was in Kenya, I missed AI. Because trust me, AI is not at the top of the list in Kenya. It's called food, water, vaccines. And so when I came back, I spent about 6 weeks in San Francisco talking to all my VC friends, all the companies, and really tried to understand AI. And when you say understand AI, that's like trying to understand business. I mean, AI is a very nuanced, I like to think there's layers of the cake, which we could talk about if anyone is interested. But so that's been really interesting. And so I went on the CoreWeave board because it's an infrastructure company, and I learned about infrastructure at Hewlett Packard. And then I'm on a fun new company called Motive that's going to go public in the fall, or in the Christmas timeframe, December. And then 3 other small startups. So that's sort of how I'm spending my time right now. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm trying to decide, do I need to go back to work full time? I don't know. So anyway, it's been an interesting experience. I'll tell you one story about AI and technology innovation. So when I was in San Francisco, I said to all my friends, I want to meet the 20 most interesting companies, the companies that you think have the most potential, pretty much in the applications layer. I mean, we all know about OpenAI and Scale AI and Perplexity, but I wanted to know in the applications layer, what were the 20 best companies? So I met all 20 founders. Okay, what percentage of the 20 founders were born in the United States of America? 2 out of 20. Indian, Chinese, Russians, Europeans. And so it just says that this influx of talent, this influx of new perspectives, this influx of constant striving and making it in America is the secret of our country. It absolutely is. And it's just that these guys are here and they are all about it. And I admired their drive. I mean, it was really fun. By the way, they're all in their late 20s and early 30s. And what's also interesting, they are deep, deep technologists. I mean, they have AI is very complicated technology, much more complicated than server storage, networking. I mean, this is a whole nother level of complexity. But they don't really know about HR. They don't know about go-to-market, right? They don't know about strategy. And so it's actually been kind of fun to try to help them build out their surrounding capabilities. But they are so smart, they pick it up like this. I mean, it's really pretty fun.
Great. Well, this is fantastic. I'm sure there's several hundred ideas about what should be next for Meg Whitman. I see our regent here Jack Fortner, and there is a couple job openings there that might be interesting to you. So I will go ahead and stop there and open it up for questions. And again, Meg, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you see as a candidate's salary for our full-time legislators in New Mexico?
Yeah. I don't know. I would want to do the work on what are they paid in Arizona, Colorado, Texas. I'd like to, I think Texas is actually still a part-time legislature too, but more than you guys do here. I don't know. I mean, it's just going to be competitive. I suspect it's, $130,000, $140,000, something like that. But I don't know. I would need to do the benchmarking.
Oh, it's been great.
You know what? There is something that's true in the world is you get what you pay for. By the way, my other pet peeve is we need to pay teachers a lot more. We didn't talk much about K through 12 education here, but this is a near and present danger for New Mexico. You cannot be 50th out of 50 states. Cannot be. We used to say, my husband's from Alabama, and we used to say, thank God for Mississippi. This has to get fixed because it is the future of your workforce. It's the future of everything. And I'm certain there's 1,000 reasons why this is the case, but you have to fix it.
So Meg, Ryan said I'd enjoy this conversation, so I really do. This is great. Thank you for being here. I noticed that when you mentioned some things, there was more applause than others, and one of them had to do with medical malpractice. So how can it, and so that's the business community. So one of the complaints we always hear is that the business community does not get involved in politics. I mean, one of my lobbyists, the lobbyist, he says, man, you got to get the business community here because we're getting killed. We're getting slammed. So how do we really motivate the business community to basically have one voice to go up to Santa Fe to get our voices heard? Because I think we all want to do it, but we just can't do it for some reason. I don't know. What advice would you give us?
I don't know. Every community that I've grown up in business, which was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then obviously in the West Coast, businesses are involved. I mean, we founded something when I first came to eBay called TechNet, which was some of you may know TechNet. It was a lobbying organization where all the technology companies got together to argue for tech-friendly policies in Sacramento. And so there's a different ethos there, which is we all understood that we have to argue for the things that will make a difference to our business and frankly a difference to the state. So if there is the situation that you described, I'm not sure quite how to do that except for try to convince people that the vision, if you can get a shared vision of taking New Mexico to the next level, the only way to do that is people have to, they have to get together and they have to argue for what they think is the right thing to do. And it's hard right now, I think, because many businesses, at least at the federal level right now, are pretty scared. A lot of my old compatriots are pretty scared. And you can see that in their behavior. But I think this is not so charged here. I mean, arguing for policies and practices and rules and regulations and tax regimes that are helpful to creating good jobs for all New Mexicans, that seems to me slightly less controversial. I'm sure it's controversial with some people, but I don't know how to advise you except for I think the business community has to pull together. And whether it's the Hispano Chamber of Commerce or the other Chamber of Commerce, I mean, these are good organizations that can argue for what you all think is the right thing to do. By the way, the United States Chamber of Commerce in Nairobi was very effective at this. And I've worked with many US Chamber of Commerces in probably 60 countries. Often they're worse than the one before. This one was fantastic. And with the US Embassy and the US Chamber of Commerce and US companies who are operating in Kenya, and then we got Kenyan companies to join, we changed a lot of things to make Kenya the #1 venture capital destination on the continent, which is kind of amazing because Nigeria and South Africa are much bigger economies, but it is now the #1 venture capital on the continent, venture capital destination on the continent because we changed a small number of things. So. Again, back to the 80-20. You cannot go in with a list of 50 requirements. Like, what's the thing that's going to make the most difference?
And it's a very inspiring talk. Thank you for doing what you did. You've been in the Valley for a long time. You have seen some of the best founders, and some of them are becoming trillionaires who you worked with. You've been here for 9 months. What are your observations? Silicon Valley, it's not the best place to live. Cost of living is high. You live in a
Taxes are
shack,
high.
right? I mean, every day we get up, other than weather and a few beautiful open spaces, we live in misery, but we still live there. There's a reason for that, right? I mean, that's opportunity cost, and there's no other place on earth that gives you the same opportunity what the Valley does.
Yes.
Everybody says, we're leaving, they come back again, and this is our place.
Everyone went to Austin, they're all coming back.
Absolutely, right? And I come to New Mexico every other week. I go back, I live there, I'm a resident here. But what is that you have seen in 9 months that will bring people back to New Mexico?
Yeah.
Not when you want to retire, not when you want to give back,
Yeah.
when you want to make something big.
I think in some ways, this is going to have to be about the vision of what you all want New Mexico to be. What can New Mexico be, and how does one articulate that vision? And maybe that's the job of the Chamber of Commerce, maybe that's the job of the University of New Mexico and the political science group, I don't know. But there needs to be, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to do these 5 things to really try to, and you've got to put some metrics on it, I think. So I don't know, we want to grow GDP at 6 to 8% a year. We want to create 1 million new jobs a year. Whatever it we want to own cardiology and primary medicine and biotechnology, or we want to own, modernization of agriculture, or we are going to own quantum, whatever it happens to be. And I think that can be pretty inspiring. The magic of Silicon Valley, because wherever I go, everyone wants to know, what is it that Silicon Valley does? Like, how did this actually happen? And I actually think it's really 3 things. First of all, it is a great university. Okay, Silicon Valley would not be Silicon Valley without Stanford University. And it's pretty obvious to me here that the only candidate for that here is UNM. Okay, so how do you turn UNM into a force that Silicon Valley had in Stanford? I promise you, without Stanford, not happening. Because so many ideas came from Stanford. And maybe Sandia and maybe Kirtland and maybe Los Alamos could be part of that engine of ideas, that research, that core research. I mean, Google started as a PhD thesis at Stanford. Let's just remember that. Then the second thing is venture capital. And venture capital, you've got a good start here, I think, with Roadrunner and I've talked to a couple of venture capitalists here. That's going to be very important. And then third is big companies that can seed talent. Okay, the granddaddy of Hewlett-Packard, of Silicon Valley was Hewlett-Packard, because we seeded talent. And then the next generation seeded talent. By the way, Meta and Google are seeding talent like crazy right now to the AI companies. And that's really important. So it's a 3-legged stool. It's a great university, it's great venture capital, and it's big companies. And the challenge here is you don't have a big company that's seeding talent. And so how do you get one of those? How do you build one of those? And I don't think it has to be Hewlett-Packard size, which was, when I went there, $125 billion in revenue in 7 major lines of business operating in 190 countries. It doesn't need to be that big, but it needs to be big enough to seed talent. And I think with the right vision, you can get people to come back here. But then you also have to, and then Rob Black, by the way, your EDD head, okay, this guy is actually on the right path. He's on the case. I think he's very good. And he's out now selling New Mexico. You're going to have to sell New Mexico. People aren't going to come here just because, hey, this seems like a good idea. You're going to have to go and tell the story. I had to go tell the story to Americans about Kenya. When I was the CEO of HP, I thought about Kenya like 1% of my time. I thought about Africa 1% of my time. I'm like, gosh, there's so many, and I suspect a lot of CEOs who are looking to expand their companies or start their companies, New Mexico isn't on the top of their list, but it could be if you tell the story. So I don't have a good answer except for right vision and tell the story. And good chili. And nice people, nice people.
Great. Let's give her a big hand. Thank you both.